I call the Planning Commission for June 2nd, 2025 to order at 7:05 PM. We'll do a roll call here. Vice Chair Kilcup,
Present.
Commissioner Hurley is excused per email. Commissioner Lambert,
Present.
Commissioner Maruziak,
Present.
Commissioner Murphy,
Present.
and I am present as well, though remotely, as emailed to Director Davis. We do have a quorum, so perfect. I move that we approve the agenda as written for tonight. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that is approved. I did not see anyone in the field of view for public. Am I missing anyone? Is there public in attendance who would like to comment in person on items on the agenda?
There's no public in attendance.
Okay,
Is it
thank you
done?
very much. And Councilmember Johnson for the council liaison report.
Good news. The City Council at our last meeting did in fact adopt the Planning Commission's recommendations for changes to the retail overlay. There was some concern, of course, as there was on the Planning Commission, about the removal of the waiver process. But as the Planning Commission had previously discussed numerous times, there was no clear, better alternative. So it is possible that Council might come back and request a revision in the future. I guess we could request it at any time anyway, but specifically to consider a possibility of like an emergency waiver situation, like if occupancy dropped below a certain critical threshold of some kind, putting in place kind of an emergency waiver process. But we'll see if that comes or not. And then the other thing is that the resolution regarding the mixed-use final plan amendment, which is the other part that would make those changes apply to center, will be coming at our next council meeting, which is next Monday. And finally, the splash pad will have its grand opening on this Friday from 2 to 4. So just in time for the students who get out of school from nearby can go and enjoy the water on what may or may not be a warm day. I haven't actually looked at the weather report yet.
I think Commissioner Kilcup will be the first in line.
We'll be second.
Writing it down right now.
But that's all that I have for the commission at this point.
All right, open up for quick questions or comments on anything Councilmember Johnson presented, starting with Vice Chair Kilcup.
No questions for me, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Maruziak.
No questions.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Murphy.
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Lambert.
No questions.
All right, thank you. And none for me. Thank you so much, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you all.
All right. So that concludes the council liaison report. Looking at the minutes dated May 5th, 2025, as well as May 19th, 2025, I move that we approve those as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, thank you. Those are approved. Looking at old business, we have the draft climate element. So I will turn it over to Director Davis.
Thank you, Chair Testman. So tonight we're continuing from last week's discussion or last meeting's discussion on the climate element. We're hoping to wrap up your goals and policies tonight so we can start putting a draft together and get that back to you at the next meeting. As I may have mentioned, I hope I did at least a few months back, is we've got a grant from the Department of Commerce, and that grant, all of our climate work has to be substantially completed by June. So we're trying to have a draft ready to bring back to you at the next meeting. And then we'll probably go out and do a little community engagement throughout the summer and then bring this back to the council in the fall. So that's kind of the timeline. So tonight we have Chris Green from OTAC here, And he's going to kind of pick up from the last meeting. And Chris, I'll go ahead and let you take it over.
Yeah, thank you. So picking up from the last meeting on May 19th, my colleague Christina Hayworth walked through some of the draft goals and policies, and just kind of talking with her and looking at the notes, it looks like there was some discussion. It looks like on um, all of the goals and policies in both of the sub elements. So the packet for this meeting pretty similar, but we tried to show some of those red line changes to kind of show what our notes were and potential edits, both from talking to you guys and some conversations with city staff, especially Jason Battles of the CPAT, the Climate Planning Advisory Team. So let me share my screen, and I just want to first quickly confirm that that this group did make it through all of the resilience and all of the greenhouse goal policies for kind of initial comments at the last meeting.
Yes, we refused to leave until we hit every element.
That's what I had heard. So okay, just want to make sure that's pretty good. So I wanted it sounded too good to be true. So I think for this one, there's kind of two things that we'll want to do. We'll want to go through these and just kind of confirm any changes, and then the big thing is looking at priorities. So there's a 5-year reporting period with Department of Commerce. It's kind of a new thing, so we don't totally know how that process will go in 2029, but the city will need to report on progress towards these goals, and we want to make sure that this process actually makes things happen and isn't just a plan that was nice to see in 2025 and then kind of goes on the shelf. Usually comp plans in Washington don't work like that anyway, but we really want to have something that's implementable. And so some of that is the number of goals and policies for each sub element. There's a lot of important things in here, but kind of trying to figure out what are the ones that might be most important, and if there's any places where things can be consolidated or cut down, or if there's information that there's another way to get into the document, kind of doing that. Yes, Commissioner or Chair Tessman.
Yeah, question. Hopefully this helps the rest of the commission as we go through this. Is when we say prioritize, right? Based off of the obligations we're going to incur by adopting the final written form. Does that look like not adopting all of the line item goals? Let's say, for example, we thought goal 1, enhance emergency preparedness, etc., was like the lowest priority, and so we said no, we think the sweet spot is only 5 goals. Like is the recommend, or do we have the leeway to trim the goals, or would that put us out of compliance with the state? Or does prioritization look like a reduction and or ordered ranking of the sub elements of the given goals? Does that make sense?
Yes. So I would say you do have, that's a great question. You have the leeway to, like for your example, goal 1, if you guys are like, yeah, that's not that important, or it's covered by other things, you could recommend not moving that one forward, or any of the, I mean, you can theoretically cut any of these. There aren't any that are like directly lined up with the state requirement. On GHG emissions reduction, they're still not directly lined up, but it's a little bit closer to where there's a few things where like reducing vehicle miles traveled is a requirement. So there's sort of a goal that has that. So that might be a little stickier. Same thing with the policies under each goal. Those can be eliminated, combined. You know, if there's other ways to implement some of those things, that's possible too to look at.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that clarity.
So process wise, unless there are kind of questions about a specific area or places that anybody wants to zero in, I figured we would go through and just kind of recap at least goal by goal what these are and what some of the changes that we have in the markups are. And then we can, you know, pause and if anybody has ideas for deleting some things, or it could be adding. I mean, there isn't like a rule either that says, you know, you're not limited on these, but the shorter the list, the easier it is to have that kind of measurable impact. So for resilience goal 1, this is really looking at emergency response. There's a note here to add wildfire and flooding to that, since those are pretty specific hazards, I think is the idea here, rather than just extreme weather. And then just kind of recapping this one again. So, or maybe not recapping it, but are there any of the, kind of in looking at the edits or kind of having some time to think about this one a little bit more, do any commissioners have any suggestions for combining this, or anything that kind of stands out as most important to keep?
I think I'm a little confused on what we're doing. We went through these last session and gave all of our comments, and now are we going through again to give comments?
We could go through, we could go through again to give like comments specific to what the highest priorities are. The other way we could do this is just kind of look at the whole sub element and really discuss, you know, if there's any locations kind of within the whole sub element that would make sense to hold on to and get rid of the other ones, or kind of trim them down basically, or not. Yeah. Oh, go
Chris,
ahead.
if I could really quick, this is Mona.
Mhm.
I'm looking at my notes and, you know, so we went through all of these at the last meeting and we gave, you know, the commissioners all gave their comments. Like my notes on this particular one say that, you know, we wanted to be specific on the hazards. So in addition to just extreme weather, you know, we wanted to, you know, add, you know, what that entailed, like include wildfire and flooding. But I don't know that we necessarily need to go back and revisit all of these again. Are you just wanting to run through and kind of give a synopsis of what you heard to make sure that we've captured everything? Or I don't think we need to redo this whole exercise again.
Yeah, I was kind of
Yes.
thinking a synopsis of what we heard, but I'm also totally fine just jumping straight to kind of here's the sub element and which of these goals and policies are sort of the highest priority to keep.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but no one's gonna know, you know, that we think, going back to goal 1 as the example,
Yeah, sorry.
no one's gonna know that we think, you know, that maybe 1.6 is the most important, you know, policy under goal 1. Even if we put it at 1.1, I mean, just reading them on paper, they're all essentially the same, right? So really the exercise should just be, all right, looking at goal one, we see the six policies associated in support of goal one. Do any commissioners think any of them need to be removed or added upon? I feel like we could just go really just like that. One,
Yeah,
does any commissioner object to the goal? If so, why? And then we can talk about that. And two, does any commissioner object or seek additions to any of the policies? Yes or no, and we can have a discussion about that. Does that seem like the right framework to the other commissioners?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, perfect. That's exactly what we need to get out of this. So,
awesome.
all right. So looking at, I'll zoom back in. Sorry. So starting with goal one for resilience, is there any questions or discussion on the goal, whether that should be kept or removed?
And this will be freewheeling. We won't do I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
like a
poll, so
poll.
please just come on with your comments.
I think it's fine as written with the addition of wildfire and flooding, detailing the hazards.
I agree with Commissioner Muzak. I think it's strong. The policies all make sense to me, so I am personally good with goal one.
And then are there any deletions or additions on policies within this goal to propose?
No, we covered them all last time.
Yeah, we did last time.
Great. And then one thing I wanted to ask also, as we're putting together kind of an implementation table, are there any of the this might look like actions there that we should, and we don't need to have these, but if there's one where you're like, anybody wants to say, please try to include this in the implementation plan specifically. Let me know if any of those kind of jump out to you as especially important.
Do we need the implementation plan, Chris?
Um,
In comp plan elements, you see the goal and the policies. I've never seen it laid out like this before. Is this like a new thing?
It's with with the climate sub element, and it's pretty brief. Like what it would end up being is just a table at the end of the element that would have intermediate actions for the next 5 years, essentially, is the implementation actions that fall within these policies.
So it's not going to look like you have it laid out here. You would just have your goal one with 6 policies below it. And then could you just have a paragraph underneath that said, this might look like, or ways to implement or implementation ideas with these bulleted items, or?
We could have a paragraph with it. What I think I've seen in some other comp plans that there's some that have these kind of implementation sections for specific topics, like housing is a pretty popular one to have it in. And then for the climate, the few drafts I've seen, they'll have like it's usually about a 1-page table that's really just the most important things, and it'll have something like the action, the time frame, goal, and policy that it might be implementing.
I was under the impression that the implementation strategies on the right-hand column were a bit more of, for instance, not necessarily like we're going to definitely do these or not, just to give us an idea of what those might look like in the implementation side. But if I could, it feels a little like maybe we need to regroup and maybe review with your colleague what was gone over in our last meeting and then come back with like the next step, because I'm not super interested in going back over what we did all of last meeting.
Yeah, Till about 10 PM, yeah.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this and it doesn't feel like you got the download. So do you want an opportunity to get that download from your colleague?
Um, I did talk to her about this, and we kind of walked through what needed to happen tonight. So I think the biggest priority is that there's still really long list of goals and policies.
So we
And
need to be trimming this up. Is that,
we need to be trimming this up. Yep.
okay? We're looking to you for direction. I think you're looking to us for a bit more direction than we have to offer. So
Okay. We need to trim it up. And so, what we had talked about was trimming this up by just kind of looking within each goal if there's policies or goals themselves that could be deleted or removed as part of that trimming process, or if anybody had things that they
overall,
especially
how many
wanted to
goals
keep.
do we have? Was it 7?
I believe there's 7 in the.
Do we have those anywhere listed like
Yeah, right here.
in short form?
Oh, they're right here.
And is there like a target in terms of how many goals we should be like landing on? Should we trim it from 7 or 8 to 4 or 5? And then for the sub element, should there be like, I don't know, 2 or 3 per goal? Like just if you can give us some of that guidance, that'll help us as we think about how to pare this back.
Yeah, I would say probably about half as many in terms of the goals. And then in terms of the policies, probably 4 or 5 per goal if you're able to cut goals.
Oh, Chair Tessman's raised his hand.
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm on mute is where I am. Thanks, Vice Chair Cook. Let me offer this to get us started. From my perspective, one of the things we talked about when we reviewed it last time, let's look at goal 3, right? There's kind of 2 elements in there, kind of like environmental justice element, and then like the tie-in to essentially housing, right? And so if I'm remembering correctly, I think we felt pretty comfortable or strongly that many of the elements, certainly of the sub policies there, were already captured in the work that we did for the housing element of the comprehensive plan. So my personal recommendation would be we can cut goal 3 in its entirety, including the policy recommendations there. And then I'd also offer the same course of action for the most part for number 8, with the one caveat that I think some of that, because I know we have an obligation to the state to meet, to plan for and make measurable improvement in environmental justice. So I think I'm happy to maybe have some other goals subsume some of those other policies, but I wouldn't have 8 be excuse me, not 8. Pardon me. That was the wrong one. I was looking in the wrong place. Goal 5. Oh my, forgive me. I think I was down in greenhouse gases. My
Yeah, I
bad.
think maybe the first one you mentioned was probably greenhouse gases goal 3 with
Yeah,
housing. Yeah.
with the
and then-
housing. Yeah,
Yep.
sorry.
No, that's all right.
But I stand same message for the most part with goal 5. And I just offer that as a starting point.
But there's sort of 2 strategies here. One is what do we think is the priority, but 2 is we're going to get measured against whatever we say, right? So we want to make sure it's something we're actually ready to put action behind over the next 5 years. So we have to be reasonable.
And that's why, in particular, I feel like goal 1 is great as written. Sure, it has 6, right? Policy recommendations, but I think like I think that one's really good. It's concrete stuff that we can plan and actually action. I feel not as strongly about some of the other goals and what they have, but I personally think goal one is good as it is, and we can trim in other goals, but that's my perspective.
Are you talking about resilience, resilience goal one?
Yes, resilience goal one, enhance emergency preparedness, response and recovery.
Can I don't mean to throw a wrench in anything, but on goal one, I'm sorry I was not here last time. You identify wildfire and flooding, but not extreme heat and cold. And nothing in there is addressing for warming shelters, cooling shelters, power outages because of both.
I think we had something on that.
I didn't see it anywhere else either, and that seems to be much more common of a hazard than wildfire, at least in our area.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is a lot of this is focused more on the heat end of the spectrum for sure.
Yeah, so having something that's specific to those extreme heat and cooling, or extreme heat and cold, I should say.
Oh, you do kind of have it in goal two,
Yeah,
sorry.
this is extreme weather, yeah.
Yeah.
Heat resilience. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so I think with each of these, maybe it'd be good to look at, I think that was a great point. Like what are those, things that are most important, just in general to commissioners. I can talk about, and I think a lot of you are pretty aware of what the state's needs are, but then that third part, and really the part that's probably going to be most useful in trimming these is there any that feel like there could be an issue for implementation, or where it's not clear how to implement it, for instance. Anything like that kind of piece of it, I think, is pretty essential to making these cuts.
Yeah, like for example, that I think that's a great frame. Like let's look at 2.6, something that I think many people want. How do we measure equity of access to green space? Well, actually, maybe I might take that back, right? Because I guess you can map a half a mile radius to most points in the city and see what percentage of the population falls within that, I guess. So maybe that's a bad example. So I'll take that back.
You put a time, time on it helps as well. If, it's by a certain date.
so
Didn't we decide to move that to goal 7? It shouldn't even be there, right?
Yeah, but that would just move it. It's not like we're trimming.
Right.
So would it be beneficial if we went through for each goal and then force ranked each policy for the order that we think they're most important, most critical? And then I would be curious, just because I don't know, how close are we on any, because I know that we have some of these things in place. So how close are we on some of them that might be low hanging fruit that we could accomplish
Combine.
over the next 5 years? And then some of them I think are going to be really tricky to have a measurable on.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say doing force ranking on the goals even might be a good
Okay.
way to start. But I don't know if it kind of depends on, like, this one has a lot of policies, so I could definitely see policies being cut out of this one. But I guess the first cut would be to say, like, are there any goals where it feels like they could drop off the list?
I have a question before we start on that, because we did
Mhm.
this piece and then there's the greenhouse gases piece that was like another set of goals. Is that how it's meant to be structured, or could we consolidate those first?
It is meant to be structured as the two separate ones, but I think there is ways to consolidate, you know, if there is something where you feel like it's, for instance, redundant from one to the other, or
It did feel like there was a decent amount of redundancy between the two.
yeah.
And then I can't remember how many more goals it was, but definitely.
But does the reporting that we're obligated to provide to the Department of Commerce require a resilience section and then also a greenhouse gas reduction section? I
Yep.
think that would help us.
It does,
Okay,
yes.
great. So we
Yeah,
have
and
the
they
two
have,
buckets of, okay.
yeah, and just kind of in a nutshell, the resilience one has to show, you know, that the hazards that we've identified are being addressed, natural environments are being protected, and most vulnerable communities are being, you know, protected from or being helped by the policies. The greenhouse gas one is vehicle miles traveled reduction, reducing greenhouse gases in general, and similar equity outcomes, that it's having policies that impact those most affected first. So those are like fundamentally what the state requires in each of those.
And then finally, on the goals themselves, do they have to have like a number attached to them? Like, so for instance, reduce greenhouse gases by X% or something along those lines, where it's very clearly measurable? Or is there a little bit of like discretion there in terms of how we like pull the goals together?
There's a little bit of discretion there. It's, yeah, I mean, the numbers help to, you know, sometimes to say like, is this being achieved or not, but it's not a requirement that, you know, you have like a certain percentage that's being met.
Chair?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Johnson.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, all right, thank you. I guess I'm confused what the purposes of trimming down. Why is that a requirement? Because it seems to me that it is easier to send something that is expensive to Department of Commerce and then have them go, that's too much, that's too much, that's too much, rather than send them something that maybe is a little bit too light on material, and then we have to come back and fill stuff in. So I'm just curious what the purpose is of trimming back. I mean, paper isn't that expensive to print an extra page of bullet points.
Not very environmental.
Do it. Save
Uh,
trees. I mean,
Mr. Green, could I add to
Yeah,
Councilmember Johnson's spot on critique? The flip side of that is, because I think your answer is going to be, well, the state needs a means to assess whether or not the city of Snoqualmie has made demonstrable progress in these areas that it committed to. And so my question would be, what does the state's accountability of Snoqualmie look like? You know, because this is the first iteration of this for the whole state of Washington, right? So, what do you have a sense of what that looks like?
I mean, it's similar to any other, I shouldn't say any other comp plan element, but it's something that probably has most of its, you know, I'd say enforceability locally. Like if there's a policy that's not being followed or there's effort that's not being made, that's, you know, something that people can point to and say, this is, the city program is inconsistent with this policy. The reporting is still 5 years out. I mean, there's this, at this point, just the statute that says that that's going to happen, and very basic info about what it entails. I mean, don't have a crystal ball for 5 years into the future, but I doubt it's going to be a situation where the, you know, state is saying like, hey, you did great on 7 through whatever, but you're missing this one, so you're in trouble.
Well, so And so to Councilmember Johnson's point, right? Like, we're actually in, there's no disincentive to be audacious.
I would say from like just a following the rules standpoint, there's probably no disincentive to it. It's more a matter of like realistic effectiveness of the plan and what's done. And it is meant, especially the overall comp plan, as a document that helps guide the city budget and infrastructure decisions and things like that. And so if you had 100 policies, you wouldn't be the first city to kind of be over ambitious and have some things where it's like you have conflicting policies and different elements maybe, or just a list that's way too long for the city to be able to fund and get done. But I would say it's not ideal as a, you
Yeah.
want something you can actually, if the goal is to actually do these things, you want to have a reasonable list.
Gotcha.
I mean, the trickiest part is there's no like, I said half the goals, just because to me that seems like about what it should be, but there's definitely no hard and fast rule as far as like what it should be.
Yeah, I just want to do a time check here. We've been at this for about 25 minutes. And I want to make sure we're not spinning our wheels. So I think I would submit, or I would recommend, polling the commissioners and seeing, one, are there any goals? I would offer this. I'd like to poll the commission and see if we like what exists as written with the red line corrections. So that would be the question. If the answer is no, then I'd be looking for input on at the goal level of if there are any that we can go ahead and discuss deleting.
Mhm.
And then once we feel like we're in a good spot on that, I'd like to come back and see on the policy level if any need to go, just to try and get us moving towards an end state. Does that work?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So let me poll Vice Chair Kilcup. And so the question is, are you in favor of keeping everything as written for the resiliency element, assuming that the red line changes indicated are made in the final draft?
I think my honest answer is I'm confused in terms of, I'm not sure what's best. These are all good things to have, but I think if it were up to me, I'd rather have a few things that we actually plan on doing rather than like a lot of lofty goals that we can't possibly make progress on all of these.
Okay, so maybe it's fair to say that you would answer that no, and then maybe when I come back for pairing out goals and or policies, there'll be some you're in favor of getting rid of.
Hopefully.
Okay, so we'll call you a no for now, and then come back on the goal level. How's that sound?
Good.
Okay, Commissioner Maruziak, same question.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a comprehensive answer here. So goal one, I went through every one of those. It's very important. I leave it exactly as is. If you're not prepared for a disaster, you don't have plans, you're going to be kind of flat-footed. I would move goal 6, the local economy is resilient to climate disruption. I'd move that to goal 2. Then what is currently written as goal 2, I'd move to goal 3. And then here's where I'm going to get controversial. I would eliminate goals 3, 4, and 7 because I'm sure they're well covered by the county, by the state, by the watershed, by all this thing. I mean, we're talking about stuff that is, yes. Here, let me give you an example. You go to goal 3 as written, ensure protection and recovery of ecosystems, including streams, riparian zones, wetlands, floodplains. So I'm sure these goals are in the watershed. I'm sure they're already in the code. We're talking about aquatic habitat, climate refugee, review and update critical areas ordinance. I mean, yeah, we could maybe roll it somewhere else, but ultimately, I'd roll that stuff into what is currently with the county and watershed areas. Same way with 4, protect enhanced climate resilience of urban forests. I think we've got a lot of the city already dedicated in that, and I know there's a lot of help with the state and with the county. And the same way with goal 7, other than what's absolutely required. Again, we're going to be dictated with environmental justice, community well-being, by the state and by the county. So focus on, let's get prepared, focus on, let's make sure our businesses survive, and focus on, what was goal 2? Public and private development, redevelopment, infrastructure, resilient. And then I would retain goal 5, which is to preserve our cultural deals. And then I think you've got something we can actually execute.
How do you feel about 8?
Did I get that far? Maybe I didn't get to 8.
It's like the city.
Internal capacity building.
No, I mean, that seems like something you have to do anyway.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, yeah, I guess you keep go 8. I actually didn't get that far. But yeah, keep go 8.
I like what you did.
All right. All right.
Can I comment on that? I don't want to.
Please. Yeah, go for it, Commissioner.
We're submitting this to ecology, right? Or we're submitting this to an outside agency?
Department of Commerce.
Commerce, yeah.
Commerce, sorry. Wouldn't we want to highlight the goals that we're already trying to accomplish by the city as in other programs to say, hey, we're doing the things that will make a difference in climate? With
That's
climate
where the
change?
strategy of this comes in, is like, is it what we're trying to put effort behind, or
Right, so like,
we want to be?
Commissioner Maruziak, like, I think you made a great point of like, oh, we can point out like where we could do other things, but I'm like, well, why shouldn't we point out the things that we're already doing if we're submitting this to the Commerce Department to say, these are the great things that the city of Snoqualmie can do?
Yeah, I wasn't viewing it as political, and maybe you're not either, but we had a conversation about what happened in Los Angeles could happen here, right?
Mhm.
Could happen with a electrical fire in the dry season, and what do we do? And are we ready for it? And I think gaming that, being prepared for that, is a little bit more important than convincing everyone that we're doing our part for the watershed as well, when it's this massive multi-city effort, for instance.
Agreed. I don't get me wrong. I mean, I have a degree in emergency management, so I recognize the importance of particularly wildfire dangers. So I'm not diminishing that, but like, if we're reporting of like what it is that we're doing to the Department of Commerce, I think cutting out the goals that we are already actively doing are going to limit it is not fully highlighting the things that we're trying to accomplish as a city otherwise. So I think it's a yes and. Like, also do the additional things, but let's not get rid of the things that we're already doing, such as the urban forestry.
Have those as like a already in place, maintain, so they're not being underfunded or underemphasized moving forward?
It's kind of where I would think. I don't know. I could go either way.
Yeah, I mean, you could say continue to maintain and put those there. I mean, as you were saying, to take credit for what we're doing already.
Some of these too, I mean, there was a process where we did kind of a gap analysis of what's already in the comprehensive plan, and there still is some of these that potentially overlap a little bit, but these were sort of selected as things that aren't already in place, like in the comp plan. Now, urban forestry is one that's I think a pretty long-standing program and everything. I don't believe there's a comprehensive plan policy currently that's supporting that or saying here's why we're doing it. Yeah, but I agree, there is sort of a balance between like new things and making sure that there's things that are sort of within reach, but these are all sort of meant to be um new things to some extent.
Well, again, things that are covered, I totally agree, we ought to refer to them, but, God, I don't think we should duplicate them.
Mhm.
And I think goal 1 is good. I think 1 through 6, I think all that stuff is good. I think the second one, which only has one big goal there, 6.1, is make sure local economy doesn't get wiped out. If local economy gets wiped out, then what do you have, right? And then, what's written currently is goal 2. I'm totally with you there. And again, maybe we could pare some of that down. I think taking 2, 6 out is there, but, yeah, by the time you get to 3, 4, and 7, oh man, I think we have this stuff covered. I think we're just, yeah.
Chris, you said you did a gap analysis in our current comp plan to see if there was any, like, did you check for redundancies? I know we have an environmental
Yeah.
element.
Yeah, and some of these, could fit maybe in other elements. A lot of these things are talking specifically about, thinking of like goal 3, these are really talking about climate change impacts that, um, they're talking about existing programs and climate change kind of being taken into consideration in, designs or programs, things like that. I think there's a real opportunity to consolidate or move those into other elements. But they aren't written as things that are just sort of policies that are already in the comp plan. They are specific to this.
When you put the goals and policies together for the climate element, was there specific requirements from commerce that we had to address? Like, are there certain goals and policies that were required to be put in here? Or-
There aren't any specific goals and policies, but it has to address the identified hazards. It has to, I'm trying to remember how it said, but basically protect the natural habitat, identify and protect the natural habitat, and then, make sure that vulnerable communities are considered in terms of the measure. So those are sort of the 3 big requirements from commerce, but there isn't goals and policies that, it's like you have to have this one.
Okay, I think maybe part of the confusion is that we've got the critical areas or the environmental element in the comp plan that covers a lot of the critical areas. So I can see why it feels a little redundant in a lot of areas. So I feel like if we could move a lot of the redundancies to some of your points.
Yeah, it'd be nice, I think, if we like gave, I don't know, like 3 different colors to what feels hot. Cause I think for this commission, the goal 1 and goal 6 feel like our hot buttons in terms of where we want to put emphasis beyond the programs that are already in place that in general we're pretty pleased with. And then my recollection, which is always a scary game, of our two weeks ago conversation was around transportation and like what can we be doing to provide, which is like the environmental justice piece and community building, and there's some more improvement we could do there to reduce our greenhouse gases as a community.
Yeah, this is really good. I mean, I guess I've, sort of framed this in terms of trimming the list down and things like that, but that is, I mean, one way you can get to that is by basically saying like, what are the essentials out of these? and really focusing on those. And so you mentioned 1 and 6, as being the sort of places where you're interested in new policies or programs.
And then in the greenhouse gases, we had talked about a few different like programs, I'm blanking, charter programs potentially, and what could we have in place around here as alternatives to single occupant vehicles?
Yeah, I think we also, if I recall correctly, goals 2 and goals 3 were very similar, and I think perhaps could be like merged into one, where we talk about land use and mixed
Yeah, and
use,
housing.
the types of like housing diversity, missing middle, urban growth in urban growth areas. That to me feels like it could be joined. One thing I want to call out is I'm not sure that singling out land use in downtown Snoqualmie is the best phrasing there. I think we'd probably, for a goal at this level, at this kind of like, 30,000 foot level, we'd probably want to just have that agnostic in terms of where the housing might take place. And obviously notwithstanding like getting in the weeds on zoning. But I think that's the distinction I'd probably want to call out there to make sure that we're just keeping our eyes as open as we can in terms of where that higher density land uses may be.
And that's for goal 2 or you mentioned goal
This is
3,
goal
but
2. In
2,
goal
yeah,
2,
okay.
I propose like goal 2, goal 3. I think the housing pieces here seem like they can roll up and be kind of joined.
Yeah, that's a good catch.
Where, can you point me to where we singled out?
Sure. Goal 2 is on page 12 in the GHG section. So the second set of goals, goal 2, it says foster higher density land uses in downtown Snoqualmie and other mixed use areas and transit corridors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really have any transit corridors.
Yeah, and transit corridors also. I mean, not really. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's like dependent on the transit related
Yeah, I just don't think it's like
goals.
super applicable. Yeah, I think we can probably do without that. I think just having the goal here is to like foster more diversity in housing, a higher density, mixed use, all of these things, and making sure obviously that we're doing it thoughtfully, right? But and then also looking towards with goal 3, the housing diversity. So looking at all manners of housing, missing middle, ADU, all of the different like residential densities within the, all of our urban growth area. To me, the like last set, these last 5 under the GHG, these are like a little bit more straightforward and like less, I think we need less surgery, frankly, on this section. I think, I know we had some thoughts on the tree canopy and also whether that was redundant to some of the stuff we talked about earlier in the urban forestry section, maybe not, but this second section feels more more ready than I think the first batch. I don't know if others have thoughts though.
Yeah, I'd pose a question to the commission, and maybe a two-parter, right? Which is, one, do we concur with Commissioner Murphy? We feel pretty good on the GHG element? Because if so, that allows us to just focus on the resiliency element. And then 2, if we're not in a good spot on the resiliency element, with certainly look for Director Davis to weigh in on the feasibility of this, but would it be beneficial to the commissioners to maybe have Mr. Green or staff look at what's currently in the resiliency element, and again, taking the feedback already received tonight, and then going through and maybe, Vice Chair Kilcup, you mentioned color coding in a different context, but like maybe highlighting in yellow everything that would be required to meet those minimum state guidelines. And then maybe highlighted in cyan, let's say, anything that we're already covering either in other elements of the comprehensive plan or in existing city policy and ordinances. Because then I feel like we could do another look now that we know kind of, what's required, what isn't, how accountability is going to be had. And that might allow us to more quickly funnel down or feel better about just approving as is, recognizing that, hey, we're accepting redundancy. But to Commissioner Lambert's point, it's because we don't see a cost to the city, because frankly, it'll be things we're already doing, we're already going to succeed in, right? We're already making demonstrable progress in. Or, some might take the viewpoint that, okay, that's an opportunity to trim. Does anyone feel good about that approach, or have an alternative? I just want to kind of keep the train on the tracks.
Yeah, let me just, first of all, I agree with the comment on greenhouse gases. I think that was pretty solid. Let me take another shot at the top, which may be helping on the coloring that you're talking about. I think the big priorities are emergency preparedness, which is currently goal 1, is the economy, which is currently goal 6. Goal 2, which is that development is made with climate in mind. It's currently goal 2, but I think that's, third one. And that we retain our cultural heritage. I think those are the 4 big ones.
Yeah.
And then 3, 4, 7, and even 8, I would suggest you put those in a different color, and we figure out what to do with those, be it communication, be it additional things, whatnot. And then at least we've gotten a step in prioritization. I mean, assuming everybody agrees.
If I may.
I do. And I would say for the greenhouse gases, I'm not so sure about goal 4 and 5. But the other ones I really like. And down.
Yeah, Commissioner Muzak, to answer your question, I'm generally in favor with that framework. The only thing I would say is, when we look at, you said you would definitely retain 5, right? How does the city of Snoqualmie work with partners to establish and sustain a native plant nursery and seed bank to support long-term restoration and carbon sequestration efforts? Like, are we going to be on the line to allocate funds for that and to make that happen?
That's a good point.
You know?
Actually, maybe we pull goal 5 off the top priorities as well. Put that in do other stuff. Yeah. So you got goal 1, emergency preparedness, goal 2, economy, goal 3, the development for climate change. And then, I was looking at the culture aspect of it, but you got a point. Goal 5 is almost too broad. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, then we got 3 big goals, and the rest figure out how to work in there. I think it's good. Yeah, real good point.
Yeah, I agree with that framework.
Yeah, like the historic sites prone to floods and whatnot, but yeah, I wasn't thinking of it comprehensively, but you're right.
Any other commissioners have feelings on the framework proposed by Commissioner Muzia?
I like it.
Yeah, I'm on board with the slicing and dicing that was just done.
Commissioner Lambert?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. I think it needs to be sliced up differently than it is. So.
Okay. And so with that slicing, maybe this is to you, Commissioner Muzak, with that slicing, right? And we'll probably need you to read that out again for the record, but are we saying then, we've got the ones that we were prioritizing. Are we saying we're good with completely discarding everything that falls below that line, or we want a second look at that with the framework being second look to potentially move parts or whole goals up on that second look. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there ought to be a second look at it, but, now that we have three, that's pretty good. So, so just to recap for everybody, the first one is emergency preparedness, and that's goal one, and I think it's written very well. Goal 6, which is economy, I think we make to goal 2. And then goal 2, we make to goal 3, which is the development. And then, and we color those green or whatever the top priority is. And then the others, we say we still need to figure out how to massage and prioritize everyone else.
Okay. So in order of importance, current 1, 6, and 2, and then everything else will get a second look. And do we feel for this additional look, do we feel we need that lens of is it covered by another element, or is it covered by existing policy or regulation? Slash, is it a minimum to meet the state's mandate?
Well, yeah, I think it's a question though, right? I mean, are we mandated to do it? Does it make sense for us to, I mean, is it valuable for us to do it? Since we're submitting this to a third party. I mean, I think, from my perspective, if it's duplicated by entities that are bigger than the city, we salute it and move on. We don't need to do a deep dive into it, but that's my thought.
Any other commissioners?
I agree.
Agree.
Concur.
Director Davis, I know you touched on the timeline at the beginning here, but if we pause where we are right now, adopting the framework that we're definitely going to move forward with 1, 6, and 2 of the resiliency element. And as I heard it, certainly correct me if I'm wrong, commissioners, essentially all the elements of the greenhouse gas element. If we pause and we say we're good with those right now, and we'd like to come back at the next commission meeting and take a look at all the other remaining elements of the resiliency element that have fallen below that line, with additional contextual information on whether they directly help meet the state's requirements or not, and or if we've already captured them elsewhere, is that going to accomplish what the city needs accomplished at this point? Does that make
Chris, are
sense?
you following this?
I believe so, that there'd be like kind of
Another look at, basically, in short, another look with that requested context, ideally, if it's not too much of a lift, but another look at all the other resiliency element policies and goals and supporting policies, except 1, 6, and 2.
Yeah, we could do that. In terms of timing with the grant project and things like that, the one thing is that the next meeting is an opportunity for the commission also to see like a preliminary draft, but a draft of the entire element kind of put together. And so what we could do is take those, take our best shot with those things that sort of fall below that first cut, the things that aren't for instance, 3 priorities in resilience, and incorporating them into other elements or discarding. We can kind of make a table, and just sort of operate on the 3, for instance, for resilience that were selected as being like the goals that we're using for the draft.
Okay.
We could focus on just the goals and policies again. It would mean
But
We,
I'm sorry,
we may
I
be able
think
to
we
bring
have,
it back.
don't we have it? Like, I feel like we have it, right?
Yeah.
We just kind of like
Uh,
went through it. I feel like we have a good sense as to like what's rank order in terms of what's priority, what's the bucket of like just kind of miscellaneous that like we'd probably need some help kind of forming a little bit. I think, and that's obviously in the resilience section. In the greenhouse gas section, like it's pretty. It's, I feel like we've all obviously went through it last week. It's in pretty good shape. Um, I think we are pretty close. No,
I would
so
only reiterate that I'm not so sure about goal 4 and 5 of the greenhouse gases. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think
Uh, so one, Commissioner Murphy, to your question, I guess what I was trying to see clarification on is, does this commission want to just press forward and call the resiliency element just 1, 6, and 2? Because if not, what I was saying is maybe at the next commission meeting, although it sounds like it could be problematic, we look at those remaining elements with the information on whether or not they're actually required to, no kidding, meet the state requirements or not, and potentially promote some of them to a final version of the resiliency element. But if the commission feels like the resiliency element is how we want it to be with just 1, 6, and 2, then that's certainly an option. Again, this is just the resiliency element. And
it was
then,
1, 6, and 2 plus some other stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we did
oh,
talk about. joint
okay,
trans-
what's the plus other stuff? That's what I'm saying.
No, that, we did talk about joint transportation and things like that, but
that's in the greenhouse gas.
um, one of the biggest, oh, you're right. One of the biggest, I think, questions is, would the state or any larger organization expect the city to do something that they're already doing? All right, invest efforts in that, because ultimately, if the answer is no, then yeah. Yeah, I'd review that, see if there's anything that you think is essential, that the city's, is uniquely in the city's purview. And if it's not in the city's purview, then yeah, run with the 3 we have.
I'm also confused about the grant. That's this June, like the June we're in right now.
Yes,
And what is supposed to happen? What are we supposed to
we're
accomplish
supposed to
in
have a
this June?
draft element, climate element adopted by June, but it appears that we got off to kind of a late start
Yeah.
in getting going on this. And so there's no ability to extend the grant. So whatever we get done, we get done.
I think we just did it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty close.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
we're
okay, so that's the question. Yes. If we take 1, 6, and 2, that could be the resiliency element. The question is, do the commissioners want anything else currently in the resiliency element moved as part of that 1, 6, and 2?
nah, I'm good.
Okay.
So you're
Okay.
okay with deleting goals 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8?
I mean, I wasn't looking at it while you
Yeah.
said those, but yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that's Vice Chair Kilcup and Commissioner Mruzak. Does that hold true for you,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yeah, I think with the caveats that Commissioner Marusiak kind of walked through in terms of how they're kind of woven together. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, just to be clear, like what's on the table is our resiliency element will be comprised of goal 1, 6, and 2, and all their current listed policies. So and everything else will get deleted for the resiliency element.
I do have a question on that because goal 6, which is now moving up to goal 2, only has one policy associated with it. Are there any policies in the other goals that we're eliminating that could maybe be applied, such as cultural resources and coordination with the tribes that we talked about at the last meeting? Even though that doesn't really fall under the local economy.
Kind of does. I mean, some of those are tourists attractions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think 5.4 is a good example of one that you could throw into 6, right? To Vice Chair Kilcup's point, right? Like, let's say damage was done due to excessive snow melt resulting in flooding to Salish Lodge, right?
Yeah.
5.4 could help.
5.4 could go in there.
Yeah. Right. So
Not the seed bank, not the seed bank.
Mm.
That protects
Yeah.
significant historic sites prone to floods or other hazards worsened by climate change. That one.
And 5.3 should probably go in there, no?
Says we take out to go releases. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That could go in there.
Okay, so that beefs up goal 2 a little
That
bit
beefs it
with
up a little
some
bit, yeah.
policies.
So, okay, so just to be clear, 1 would stay as is, 6 would get augmented with current 5.3 and 5.4
Yep, yep.
to form 6.1, 5.3, and 5.4 as the elements of goal 6,
Goal 2.
which would become 2. I'm just gonna talk in the way it's written now. Okay. All right, and so if we did that, are all the commissioners good with deleting everything else?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I didn't, I did any changes from Vice Chair Kilcup, Commissioner Muzak, or Commissioner Murphy? All right, and then Commissioner Lambert, would you be good with that as our resiliency element?
I'm a little worried about leaving anything out about environmental justice or community well-being.
Yeah.
Actually, Chair, if I could just make a comment about that.
Yeah, Councilmember Jones, please.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the requirements was something about impacted communities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Chris, do you know?
it is, yes. I could find the specific wording, but you're on the right track. It's identifying vulnerable communities and making sure that this is for resilience, that they're protected from those hazards, or that the policies address those hazards specifically for those communities.
Well, and I remember from the last meeting, for you, Commissioner Muzak, like, I feel like 7.3 spoke to you when it came to environmental justice. And I agreed with it, right? Like, looking out for our high-risk populations makes a lot of sense. And it addresses in a little bit of specificity one of our greatest risks that we're trying to mitigate with this resiliency element, which is wildfire smoke. So, like, for environmental justice, I think 7.3 is a good one. And so the question I would pose is, okay, do we want all of goal 7? Or do we want a goal 7 comprised of, for example, just 7.3? What would alleviate the concerns you raised, Commissioner Lambert?
Sorry.
You can respond, Commissioner.
Oh,
Murphy,
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, at the top level, you see advanced environmental justice, create and like culturally contextualized outreach. That's kind of why it hit my initial deprioritize. However, when you get to the outreach for vulnerable and sensitive populations and the high risk populations and wildfire smoke mitigation, yeah, I mean, I think maybe reword that goal a little bit, still use environmental justice, but somewhere put the vulnerable and at-risk populations within the goal itself, and kind of keep 7.3
Couldn't that go
and
into
7.2.
one?
Could it go under one?
I think it could.
Could even go under economy or
Yeah, one
or the development goal. But
Yeah,
to everybody's point though, I think calling out environmental justice shows that we've taken seriously what we've been asked to do. And I would just highlight in that goal the high risk populations.
Mhm.
I'd put that in there somehow.
And it is preparedness. To
Yeah,
have those,
yeah, I mean,
to have
yeah,
those
yeah,
areas
we-
designated and the proper equipment that we would need to maintain safe air quality
Yeah,
for.
yeah. If you could roll it in one, that'd be very cool. If you need a separate goal that says the words environmental justice, then that'd make it goal 4. That one,
Yeah.
have a 4th priority.
So Commissioner Murphy, I'm in favor of it as a standalone. And after having just thought about it a little bit more and hearing Commissioner Lambert's kind of point of view on this, I think it's important that this to me is the connective tissue between some of the implementation and the policies and the people, right, that are impacted, right? And I think there are certain things that we have to do to make sure some of these goals are that our citizens are reached by these goals. So I think the outreach makes sense. I think the partnership building and capacity building in terms of making sure that we have programming to folks that are vulnerable, seniors, children, things like that. And obviously the smoke mitigation, I think we could quibble with it, could be in this section, it could be up at the first section or the first goal. But I think given that, there's disproportionate, risk on smoke inhalation and mitigation as it relates to disadvantaged communities, it seems like it fits in environmental justice. So I would almost suggest that we keep it as is, the way it's here, because it just gives us an ability to prioritize these things to connect the policies to the people.
I'm convinced.
Yeah.
You convinced me.
You're great.
All right, so what I hear then is the final draft of the resiliency element would be comprised of current element 1.
Yep.
Current element 6 with the addition of current 5.3 and current 5.4 moved in to 6. And then current number 2 and current number 7. And everything else would be deleted.
Yes.
Yes. Agreed.
Okay. So anyone with concerns?
When I say
Okay.
so moved,
Well, I haven't made and any of you can certainly make a motion on that. But I would say let's put a pin in resiliency, and let's quickly go over to greenhouse gas and look at potential trimming there based off of Vice Chair Kilcuff's concerns. Which ones were you concerned with, Vice Chair Kilcuff?
Councilmember Johnson wants to
Oh,
make-
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, just real quick, in terms of deletions, I wonder if, when this comes to the Community Development Committee and on to council, if what has been deleted could be kind of set aside as like, here are the things were considered as sort of like a grab bag as council is considering things.
Yeah, like grade out, kind
Yeah,
of like to
like-
the side.
It's over there, but we may want to pull things over and shift things around once it gets to council, and I don't want it to vanish forever.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll adopt that. Okay. So
Great.
Vice Chair Kilcup, what were you concerned with on the GHG element?
Getting there.
5, right?
Yeah. Sure. So goal 1 is the transportation systems. I think we had a lot of really healthy conversation around that. That does feel like it's something that we could actually impact. Improving densification, I think like smart densification, not human filing cabinets, for goal number 2, and reasonably dispersed, but that really helps the transportation piece, we know. Goal 3, increasing housing diversity and environmental justice. So that's good. And then 4, this, I'm not against it, just like, don't we already use renewable energy?
I don't think so, right? Like, for example, like I personally opt into PSE's solar offerings, right? But otherwise, it's just sourced off of, however they source. I know we're in Washington, right? So odds are it came from hydropower.
Hydroelectric,
Yeah.
primarily.
Yeah, I get that. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily exclusive. And for example, I think you could what I'm trying to say is we still have plenty of natural gas usage in Snoqualmie, right? And so you could say that that encompasses trying to get people to switch to electric cooktops, for example.
Yeah.
I think just in this one, it's a real challenge as far as like land use and comprehensive plan level to, because a lot of this stuff is at the building code level that a lot of this stuff happens, and or at the state level for incentives or things like that. But buildings were the biggest source of GHGs. That was something that was sort of within the city's control, and so yeah, I just wanted to kind of give that context of like it's a challenging one where you've got this large emission source that's part of the built environment but difficult to get to.
Yeah, I think like Commissioner Maruzak really helped on the resiliency element by taking the approach like, hey, no kidding, what do we as a city need to accomplish to move the needle in that case on resiliency, right? And so like when I apply the same lens to the GHG element, to me, that means goal number one for sure. It doesn't mean number two or three, mostly because it is redundant. They are covered in the housing element, almost 100%. And it does mean 4 and 5. So to me, GHG reduction within the control of the residents of Snoqualmie means 1, 4, and 5 to me. But I could be a minority. So
Yeah, but what do you do with 5?
Yeah. That's not already happening.
I mean, we're the city of trees for 14 years, and I love it. I'm very happy with that. But maximize tree canopy coverage.
I think part of the idea with 5 is this is more one of those, what's something that you're doing, and sort of memorializing that both for the purposes of demonstrating that you have this strategy in place that's ongoing to promote carbon sequestration. And also there isn't a lot of, even though that program is very robust, there's not a lot of comp plan policies, especially that are specific to like, we're doing this for GHG sequestration, or using less cooling hours for buildings or things like that.
oh, so you're saying included because it talks to it specifically in the context of GHG reduction?
Yeah, and it's something that the city could especially, I think, going into the future, but even now, argue like, hey, we're doing this and we're going to continue to do this as a way to reduce emissions. And it's sort of like low-hanging fruit in a way.
That's fine.
Okay, so coming back to you, Vice Chair Cookup, so like, would you just take the GHG element as it currently exists?
I'd be fine with that. Yeah. I mean, I thought we were trying to hack and slash a bit. And, but if you're saying that you feel like 4 and 5 are, if it's 1, 4, and 5 in your book, then yeah, I'm not opposed to any of these as strategies.
Yeah. And you're saying 2 and 3 are already covered?
Well, all I was saying was I think we hit a ton of 2 and 3 are just focused on housing, right? And to Mr. Green's point, yeah, it talks about it in the context of GHG reduction, but at the end of the day, we have covered increasing density, allowing for ADUs to the maximum extent possible. We've talked about, we've covered all that in the housing element.
So yeah, to answer your question, then yeah, I'd be fine with all 5 of these goals moving forward.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. Commissioner Mruzak, what do you think?
Yeah, if, I like your idea of if we duplicated 2 and 3, then let's not put it in here, but, I'm not adverse to any of it.
Okay. Commissioner Murphy?
I'm in favor of all 5. I think also having 2 and 3 in the housing, it reinforces the transportation element on top, right? They're kind of 2 sides of the same coin as it relates to efficiency on vehicle miles traveled, density, and more housing options makes it so we can have more people afford to live here and not have to drive many miles to and from their jobs. So while to your point, while it may exist elsewhere, in the housing element you call out, I think having it here also has it such that it's part of the strategy, right? Like it fits within the other pieces. So that's why I'd prefer to keep it in here.
All right. Thanks. Commissioner Lambert?
I'm fine with most of them. I do want to, sorry, just goal 4.1 and 4.3 require all publicly owned buildings to be powered completely by renewable energy by whatever set date. Like, are we petitioning PSE to change their power profile? Like, we don't have much power over that.
Should we
Mm-hmm.
change that to encourage?
I mean,
Or just
I would
remove it
at least, yeah,
altogether?
I'm just, and the same thing with the, like, kind of like the policy adopt code amendments that require higher energy performance or that include on-site electricity generation. Like, are we just, like, we have wind farms throwing up in the backyards? Like,
A lawnmower type generator. but
yes.
okay.
I'm just a little bit worried about those, but other than that, I think I'm mostly fine with this stuff.
As a planner, that kind of worries me too, because here we are, we're trying to build more affordable housing. And the more restrictions we put on the housing, the less affordable it's going to become.
Yep.
So I want to kind of be cognizant of that.
Well, and so that goes back to the beginning of this conversation and the kind of information we got in the last review, which was all those examples weren't commitments, they were just illustrative. So if they were in fact just illustrative, then I don't think it's a big deal. And then my question would become, do we want to just get rid of 4.3? Do we want to massage the language? But if that's so Mr. Green, like, are those things in the far right column no kidding commitments?
No, they're
Okay.
definitely illustrative
Wait.
examples.
Okay.
Chair, wait, point of order, 4.3 is in the left column. Require all public owned buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going back and I was saying Commissioner Lambert raised 2 issues, right? 4.3 itself, and then the issue of the adopt code amendments that require higher energy performance or that include on-site electricity came up. So what I was saying there was if the stuff on the right is merely just there as an example, then I wouldn't get bogged down with that adopt a code amendments issue, and I would just come back to 4.3 and say, okay, do we want 4.3? Do we want to delete it or do we want to modify it? Because the consensus that I hear is that everyone either is okay with or actually feels strongly that we just keep all 5 elements of the GHC as written.
I don't think 4.3 works. The more, I agree with Commissioner Lambert. I just don't think it works. I mean, own buildings to be powered completely by renewable energy. I mean, what does that even mean? You're saying net zero. I mean, what does that even mean?
4.1 as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on 4.3, I mean, there is PSE subscriptions that are considered net zero. So like in the inventory that's factored in is like how many customers in Snoqualmie subscribe to those things. So I mean, that could be maybe rewritten to show that that route is an option. I just wanted to point that out, that is a way for it to get done, is specifically to just subscribe to renewables through PSE.
That doesn't feel controllable for us to enforce in any way.
Do you know what the cost implications are to something like that? I mean, I don't understand how that works.
You do pay a service charge or an additional charge per kilowatt hour or whatnot that you would pay on your electric bill. So it would increase the utility rates for all public buildings.
Good. Would we want to, do we want to see the whole goal four is written go away? We feel like it's something that we can't achieve.
So one of the issues that I have with this goal is when I was an architect, I did a rather deep dive on this and just carbon and all of that. And there's so much waste that ends up going into like in the name of renewables and sustainability that I am just like fundamentally I have a hard time with it.
So
Very expensive.
Well, yeah, it does end up being very
Cost-benefit
expensive. And then
analysis.
if we are, yeah, we're spending more money and we're changing our systems or moving things over to different technologies for what exactly? The net gain is typically not that great.
I will say this is the largest, people subscribing to the green energy programs with PSE was the largest change that people in Snoqualmie had control over in terms of the emissions falling from 2019 to 2023.
Subscribing. Say it again?
So there were two things that were the biggest sources of emissions reductions in Snoqualmie from 2019 to 2023. One was PSE kind of greening its grid, which happens whether people in Snoqualmie take any action or not. The one that was the second most was people subscribing to the green energy
sourcing.
And wasn't as big as the overall grid changing, but this actually was the largest source of emissions reduction that was done by people in the community.
I'm still not clear what it was. What was it? Subscribing to greenhouse sourcing. What was that?
Yeah, so I do it, right? So as an example, let's say my normal utility bill would be $250 a month because I didn't tell PSC that. I said, I don't care how you source my electricity. I'm just happy I have electricity. So here's your 250, I get my electricity. But instead, they have an option where you can say, I want to support PSE's efforts to provide to source from solar or from additional hydro, whatever, right? From renewables. I pay extra. So instead of paying 250, I pay 275 because the amount of electricity I get is equivalent and sourced from renewables, not just off of the grid. And so Mr. Green saying like that is a lever and it's the second most effective lever proven in terms of Snoqualmie reducing its footprint.
Curious what Commissioner Lambert feels about that?
I will abstain from commenting.
I think, do we feel like maybe just the language is too strong and instead of ensure, we should say encourage, instead of require, we should say encourage? And potentially that makes us miss the mark on what the state's looking for. Because there seems to be a lot of consternation on goal 4.
Chris, do you have any opinions on that based on?
Yeah, I think I mean, there's different ways to get at it that have a lighter touch or a little less binding. I mean, I'm in looking at like 4.3, it's, there could be encourage instead of require. It could be, city-owned buildings. It could specify that it's through subscription and not like that they all have to have solar panels or something. I think there's some ways to soften
Adjust.
it. Yeah, it is the largest sector in terms of emission sources. It's, buildings, and this is, other than like shade from tree canopy, the main way we were able to get at that, I guess, in terms of policies.
Chair?
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, so I don't see where the where that program is under 4.1. Maybe I'm just missing it. But regardless, it seems to me that 4.1 and 4.3 could be combined if you just took the word publicly owned buildings and put it up there with the new residential and commercial.
Like new residential, commercial, and publicly owned buildings.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
drop require. So then regarding that program, perhaps there's kind of the encourage, but there's also the educating the public about that program, because my guess is that if not everyone here who is an informed participating member of the public is aware of the program, I bet that there are a lot of residents and owners in the community at large that are also unaware of the program.
Yeah, agreed.
So perhaps that could be a revision to one of those under 4, is to talk about the education. And perhaps that could kind of augment the requirement.
Any commissioners have any thoughts?
I like those suggestions.
I like that.
Mhm.
Great.
All right, so what seems to be on the table to me would be the GHG element as it's written, except that goal 4 would be modified such that 4.1 and 4.3 are combined through that use of commas. And then outside of that change, do we feel that we need, and then with the addition of some sort of policy concerning community outreach and education on renewable energy sourcing? With those modifications, do we feel good on the GHG element?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone uncomfortable with it?
Can I make one suggestion that might actually help maybe trim it a little bit based on the conversation? Is I think we do have some opportunity to take 2 and 3 and consolidate, smush them together. I think there is some similarity there, and that could kind of help where there's some redundancies with like other parts of the comp plan.
Okay.
I don't have to, but I think it might help kind of.
Let me poll the commissioners, to the question being, would you want 2 and 3 to remain untouched? Would you want to parse it out ourselves here tonight? Or would you defer to Mr. Green's expertise and he can bring us a revised combined 2 and 3 in the draft, final version of the GHT? And let me know if you need that repeated, but Vice Chair Kilcup?
Personally, I would keep them separate.
All right. Commissioner Muzak?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think they're addressing different areas.
All right. Commissioner Murphy
Yeah, separate.
and Commissioner Lambert.
Peer pressure, separate.
Okay.
That's
All
good. That's
right.
fine. Yeah, that one less edit to make, so that's good.
All right. So if we feel like we're in a good spot, I'm happy to make a motion on what we want to see for, well, I don't even know if we need a motion, right? So let me recap where I think we are. Commissioners, you let me know if I missed something or we need to change it. And then, and Mr. Green, you let me know if it's perfectly clear for what you need in order to have the draft final one, final elements ready next time. So for the resiliency elements, the final version would be comprised of current elements 1, 6, with 5.3 and 5.4 added to 6, and then number 2 and number 7 as written, so that the prioritized order is number 1 is 1, number 2 is current number 6, number 3 is current number 2, and number 4 is current number 7. That would be the resiliency element. And then what would be requested is what is transmitted to the Community Development Committee would include all of the other goals and their associated policies for them to still consider. So that would be the resiliency element. Before I move on to GHD, any commissioners want to correct that?
No, that's,
Oh.
No, sounds right.
that's good. Yep.
Okay. And then for GHG, we want to include everything that's currently depicted. However, goal 4 will be modified to combine 4.1 and 4.3 and to add a policy on educating and outreach to the community for renewable energy sourcing. Did I miss anything, Commission?
Softening the language
And softening the language.
for goal
Thank
4.
you. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. And you have what you need, Mr. Green?
Yes, thank you. That was extremely helpful.
All right. We walked back from the edge. Good deal. All right. Awesome. Anything else, Mr. Green, or Director Davis before we move on?
My only
Oh,
question
okay.
was really quick on goal 4. I just want to make sure we want to keep in the word require. And
No,
that
we don't.
That was part of the
That's part of the softening.
That's
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
softening.
Oh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll come up with a
I think it's
definite
going to
encourage or,
yeah.
okay. Okay, other than that, I think I've got it all too. So Chris, hopefully we can compare notes and they match.
Yep. Yeah, I think, thank you to all the commissioners and thank you to Chair Tessman. That it's a very focused element that I think is going to come out of this.
Awesome. All right.
All right, thank you. I'll
Thank
see
you.
you in a few
Yes.
weeks. All right,
All right. Have a good night.
thanks,
See
you
you in
too.
a couple days.
That's right. Yeah. Bye.
All right. So that concludes old business, the draft climate element. Moving on to other business, items of planning commissioner interest. I do want to make a quick public service announcement here. Anyway, had a meeting this week and I just encourage commissioners to review the RCW on the purview of planning commissions as well as the municipal code. The goal for items of planning commissioner interest going forward will be bring your land use and associated, planning commission topics, issues of concern. But the plan will be, this is for us to present to staff, the item that we're interested in. with the expectation that the answer will come in the next meeting or maybe the meeting after that, depending on the complexity of the topic. Does that make sense? Just to give them time to properly research any concerns that you highlight here.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, let me go to Vice Chair Kilcup for items of planning commission interest.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Muzak?
Yeah, I think this might qualify as land use. Thursday, went into Bartels and I was shocked to see half of the aisles empty. And I said, what's going on? They said they're closing on July 9th. So I was like, wow, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And kind of curious about
So
that location and the land use of it. So that's item number one I have. And item number two is, it looked like some work was going on in the Woodman. I know that was wanting to be refreshed at some point. So I was curious if anything land use wise had changed there.
Chair, I could speak to the first item.
Councilmember Johnson, please.
Yes, one of the things that came forward to the Community Development Committee with regard to the retail overlay as it regards to center was the idea of expanding it perhaps to include some of the other areas that are nearby, perhaps the dollar store and the Starbucks that's over there, and maybe even across to the Bartels and the Safeway and the Mod Pizza, et cetera, that whole area. And what eventually came down as the recommendation from staff, actually, that alternative came from staff, but also recommendation to not do that from staff, in that perhaps the intent of the retail overlay relook as it was regarding walkability, and that there's kind of a distinction between the type of retail that we could expect on center and downtown, and the type of retail that you expect in a store that has a larger footprint, that's more like a place that more residents would drive to rather than mosey around and walk to. And as a result, what the Community Development Committee kind of landed on was that we will relook at those land uses for those larger retail spaces when we relook at the zoning. Actually, it's not even a relook, it's the first look at rezoning Snoqualmie Ridge. Since right now, as most of you know, Snoqualmie Ridge is a big beige blob on the zoning map for mixed use final plan. And that when we relook at those uses and actually zone it out, much like as an example of a place that recently did this, the Issaquah Highlands, which used to be a big blob of mixed use final development, mixed use final plan, that we would look at it then in terms of the land use. As far as let's say that some other retail comes in now as things stand before that occurs, which may or may not be likely. I don't know what the plans are for that particular site. But if it were to come in, let's pretend in the next week or month or something, then the rules that are in place right now would be what would apply to that applicant for that land use. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank-
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Oh, and I don't know about the Woodman.
Anything specific, CVS or Walgreens thinking about the Bartels, or is that too early to?
Not that I'm aware of personally.
CVS is the reason they're closing.
Walgreens, no.
Okay.
I had
Cool.
heard that Bartels was closing several locations, as we know, but that CVS, there were possibilities of CVS coming in and moving into those locations. So I'm currently trying to find that out. So, and then as
Yeah.
far as the Woodman, I checked on that, and apparently they are just doing maintenance to the building. We're not aware of any plans for any new development going in there.
Okay, that's all I have.
Commissioner Ruse, I would add, I did see, I think it was May 16th, a Bloomberg article outlining the companies that are interested in buying both the real estate and the basically the prescription data, the patient data of Bartell's. So CVS was in the mix, Albertsons was in the mix, and I forgot the other companies, but I can forward you that. I haven't heard anything or seen any reporting since May 16th.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Murphy?
So actually follow up to Commissioner Maruziak's question, and this might be a planning question to like come back to it next time, but there's nothing on that site, right, or that location where the current Bartels is, where it's like there must be a pharmacy, or we're not obligated. They're not obligated to put another pharmacy there. It could be some whatever is zoned in the code for retail uses at that location. Okay.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, got it. And then, do we know when does the lease expire? When the store closes? I'm sure there'll be some sort of like transition period, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're trying to get a hold of the owner to get more information on if there's any known plans for that building coming up. And then remember too that the hospital expansion will have a new pharmacy in it.
Mm.
So I
Right.
realize that there's a little, we've got, a little tiny gap there, but they are planning to bring in a pharmacy. So
got it. And then follow up to that, has there ever been any, and maybe this is something pondered years ago, but I know many Safeways have pharmacies. The one in North Bend has a pharmacy. Was there ever at any point like contemplation of a pharmacy in the Safeway on Snoqualmie Ridge?
from what I understand, we did talk about that, but because there was a pharmacy in Bartell's, there was some clause in the development agreement that they wouldn't compete. And so they allowed, I think that's where the full service meat deli went in lieu of a pharmacy.
Got it.
So, but it doesn't mean that we could, maybe Safeway couldn't now figure out how to bring in a pharmacy.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there is being some outreach done. I just don't have any good answers yet.
Okay.
That is
Um,
typically how it works. It's an exclusion. So
Mhm.
they have like the rights to pharmacy, but once they go away, then those rights open up. And so Safeway could, if they so chose, add that in.
Got it. Thanks.
All good, Commissioner Murphy?
Yeah, all set.
All right, Commissioner Lambert?
Nothing for me, Chair.
All right. And nothing for me either. Thank you. Are we actually in position to talk about upcoming schedule, Director Davis?
Just to give a little update, the council committees are currently going through kind of our work programs. And so each council committee has been tasked with, kind of laying out all of the things that they are trying to work on and kind of giving a timeline of when they expect to get that done. So I recently took a rough stab at that, and we had our committee at 6 o'clock tonight. I know every committee is going through this same exercise. I think once we get that more formalized, then I can bring that and put it in your packets at an upcoming meeting. One thing that the city administrator has recently encouraged me to encourage you in is if you have questions about what's going on in parks and public works or just with various things in the city, that you can always attend those committee meetings to become more up to speed on what they're working on and what the timelines are around that. So I just wanted to give that little reminder.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
And those meetings are posted on YouTube as well.
Oh, that's correct. Yes. Good point.
So you don't have to go.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Davis. All right. So, another long one, and we tried to narrow the agenda, so I think it's a testament to the diligence of this commission and the great questions and persistence. So appreciate it as always. But at this time, I would move that we conclude the planning commission meeting for 2 June. Can I get a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Have a good night, everyone.